if you want 2026 to be the best sales year of your career, don't wait for it to be handed to you by someone. You have to build the systems and the process that create that success. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Haverin About, a father-daughter podcast all about healthcare technology sales. Dad, Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year, Bethany. It feels like I've been saying that for an eternity now, because we're recording this on the 8th of January. But as far as I'm concerned, to you, our lovely viewers, it's the first time we've met you this year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And it is that time of year again. It's a new calendar. That means for the majority of folks listening, it's a new quota. That means that everything has reset and all that wonderful stuff you sold last year does not matter anymore. Yeah. All that matters is the pipeline ahead of you.
What have you done for me lately, I think is the phrase.
Exactly. And so it's very exciting for me because I am starting the year in a slightly different seat, new company, new role, very similar to what I've done before, but really excited about this company and kind of some of the values that they have and the community that they serve is really exciting. But it means that this January is important to me because, you know, not only is it a new quota, it's a new everything. And so today's episode is all about that. How do you plan effectively for the next 12 months ahead of you? Personally, professionally for your company, professionally for yourself. And, you know, the number has reset, the expectations have reset, whether you had a brilliant year last year or maybe not so great.
Yep.
Doesn't matter anymore. Really doesn't matter anymore.
Well, that is the wonderful thing about the sales calendar is you have 365 days, except, and this is my one piece of advice up front, that clock disappears really, really fast. As a sales manager, I always used to say to my reps, literally keep a countdown clock that shows how many days you have left in the year. Because guess what? It's not 365 anymore. It's 358 or 357 because we're now on the 8th. So that means that you're already shrinking the window in which you've got to be able to achieve what you have to do. But it's exciting. I always used to love the New Year reset because, yes, you got to go through some kind of like backwards looking, etc. But again, one of my favorite quotes I always used to say is from, it's actually attributed to Enzo Ferrari, the Ferrari, sort of creator and designer. And he used to say, what's behind you doesn't matter. Only what's ahead. And I think that's a great mantra for people involved in sales. So we are here today to talk about what's going to set you up for your best sales year ever. No hype, no hustle, no hustle culture, just practical things that good reps need to do and that good managers need to encourage as behaviors in their teams. Things to do in January whilst everybody else is saying, I'll get back to you. So this is Haverin About. And I think, Bethany, you're going to kick us off with a wee discussion.
Absolutely. So let's start about what you should do this first week, second week of the year. I think you need to block 90 minutes of your calendar out and do a professional reset. Look at last year's CRM data. Your manager will love you for it. They'll love that somebody else is actually looking at all of that data that you put into Salesforce. But if you've been putting quality data into Salesforce, you can look back and you can see all of your closed and all of your lost opportunities. And you really have to take the time to do a very honest, deep dive into what you want to repeat and what you want to leave behind in 2025. So look at your deals that closed the fastest. Why? Was it because you had just come off of a very similar deal so you could rinse and repeat a lot of things? Was it because just all the stars aligned and, you're just going to have to trust the universe to give you another thing like that? Is it because you had a new sales engineer next to you in the seat and they were crushing it right alongside you. Look at what worked. On the inverse, look at what didn't work. The deals that you were super excited about and super hyped up about, and week after week in deal review, you had to say, well, they're still considering. Well, we're still trying to schedule a demo. Well, we're still trying to get pricing back from so-and-so. Look at that and be really honest with yourself. Were you the one that was holding things up? Was it because you weren't going out and doing outreach as fast as you could? Was it because you weren't responding as quickly as you could? Was it because you were afraid to push that person in finance or that person in legal to get back to you quicker? Be very, very honest. And I think that's where you have to look and see, where did I personally control or not control the process? Because we always hear as a salesperson, you're the quarterback for this deal. You're the quarterback, you're the lead, you're the...
Yeah.
And sometimes that's true. And you are. You also have to be aware that sometimes if you know your legal team suck at getting red lines back to you, because maybe they're just terrible, but most of them aren't. Most of them are just underwater. Okay, you've got to change your process and how you work with them. You've got to lean on your management and your leadership to encourage some of those other players to really kind of improve things on their side.
And I would just add to that, or if it's not something that you can control or influence, how are you going to adjust your planning? Because in that example that Bethany gave of legal teams being sluggish about coming back to you with the red lines or whatever, that means your learning is not, to sit there every morning going, oh, I wish the legal team were more responsive. It's to go, okay, one, how can I avoid getting caught out by those challenges with the customer in terms of like trying to head some of those issues off at the pass so they don't even become issues that you have to send to legal? That's the first strategy. The second strategy is knowing that you have to adjust and get your behavior whereby you're getting those issues to them quicker. Don't wait until a contract red line. Sit down with the customer and say, hey, listen, I am sure you're going to have comments and issues that you're going to have. How does your organization normally respond to some of these contractual terms and conditions? What's their normal expectations around the critical items that you know and have learned are the trip points that normally need legal or commercial review inside your organization? Get ahead of it. Have a game plan. Play chess. Think 5 moves ahead. Don't be a victim and wait until it's, now I need to get legal to look at this. So that would be my other piece of advice is if you can't change it, then you have to come up with a different plan.
Yeah. And if you're new to an organization like I am this year, ask the questions of the people that were there. Well, how did this deal close? How did you find it? What are people having questions about a lot of the time? I'm trying to proactively pull as much of that information out, and I'm looking at Salesforce and going, well, this one closed quickly and this one has this and this. So what was different about this one compared to that one? Number one, you'll look smart because you're actually analyzing, and maybe they have or maybe they haven't, but everybody likes knowing that they hired someone who actually is going to do the work.
Yeah.
But it is important for you to look back. Don't treat it like you got a bag on your head and you've got no idea what happened. You can ask. You can poke around and figure out. And I think, as part of this 90 minutes or 2 hours or however long you set aside, you need to write down, what am I going to keep doing? What patterns were working? Yeah, you can use one of our beautiful Haverin about notebooks. Exactly. Nothing better. It's like a new school year when you get the new pencils and the pens. I started my new job. That one of the first things I did was go to Staples. I bought some new pens. I got some new highlighters. I got new Post-it notes, new index cards, my favorite index cards. I'm ready to go.
Maybe
write down.
Yeah, and you might think that's old school and I haven't done that since high school or college or it doesn't matter. It's actually psychologically very good for you to do that tidy up and go, I am going to get on my game. I am going to be organized. I am going to be, even if all your old bad habits come back later, do the mental reset now. New year, new you, new quota.
Exactly. And look, and if you want to get a little modern with it, type it into ChatGPT, have a conversation with your ChatGPT and ask them, okay, with all of this information, what should I do differently and what should I do the same? And then take it from the computer and write it down so you get that muscle memory. Love a muscle memory. All right, so let's move on to quotas.
Oh.
Now, some people get their quotas ahead of the year. Some it's going to be at sales kickoff in a couple of weeks, but you know there's a number coming, and you know that quota doesn't go down.
You know,
so if it was $1 million last year,
you know, the latest I ever got my quota for a January 1st start, April 27th. In my company, and it was like for like almost like 14, 15 weeks of the year we operated not knowing what our number was or how we were going to be paid.
That is wild.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just, as you were saying that, and I was going, yeah, sure, you get it. But no, Bethany's right. Hopefully you actually either have a good idea, or if you're going to your sales kickoff or your QBR, you may be the type of organization that walks away from those events with your quota in hand. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we're all in that stage whereby that's part of the excitement. But now let's talk about some of the dread people have about their quotas.
Yeah. Well, no, and it can be, scary, especially if you did have a good year last year. It means you probably don't have a ton of pipe. You didn't sandbag a bunch of deals that are just sat there waiting for you in Q1. If you had a bad year last year, I hope that's what you did do. And you're sitting and you're like, I've already closed $500,000 and I'm, number one on the rankings one week in. Great. If that was you, fabulous. If it wasn't you, break it down based on math.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of reps, and I've seen this, tend to be a little head in the sand. They're like, well, I have, this pipeline for Q1 and Q2, and then, stuff will come in Q3. Be there. Stuff will turn up, and maybe stuff will turn up. It really depends on the product that you're selling. Yeah. Like if you are existing accounts and you're an account manager, you know that there's going to be renewals that come in. You know that there's going to be growth that comes in. There's always kind of a steady, like when I was at Rhapsody, I knew that there would be a steady flow of stuff that would be fine. But for me to make my number, I still knew I needed, $500,000, $1 million of stuff that was not just going to organically, naturally come. You have to go out and plan for it. And it's a math game, right? If your quota is $1 million and your thing that you sell, the average deal is $100,000, you need 10 of them to close, okay, to hit your number. Well, you need more than 10 opportunities to close 10 deals. And so work it backwards and spread it out through the year. You know that Q4 is a crappy time to close, so you have to put it in the beginning of the year and just map it out, math it out. And if you don't have enough opportunities, either go find them, or if your territory and your product and everything is that crappy, go listen to Brian's episode last week and go find a new job. Because if you can't see a path to quota in January, if you're telling me like, oh, it looks rough in September, that's fine. As long as you've done the work. But if you're telling me that in January, that means that something is wrong with the role that you're in.
And like, as Bethany described there, that's a fairly typical pattern that people have. Either if you're rolling over, if you're not in her situation in a new job, new quota, empty pipeline, a sales force devoid of opportunities that belong to you. The company might have them, but they're not allocated to you. You actually have to do that grunt and work it through. But you have to start. Everybody, either existing 10-year veteran in a company or somebody brand new in the door that started at the beginning of the year, you have to start by saying, here's my quota. What is my path? Start with the path, which is exactly as Bethany says. You take your number and based on whatever information is available to you, you say, okay, how am I going to do that? If you're in a single product company, that's dead easy. As Bethany says, you take $1 million, $100,000 deal size, you divide it and you get the answer of 10. I need 10 deals. The math for pipeline then becomes really easy. I've been doing sales for a very long time. Telling you right now, don't make it complicated. 3 to 1. 3 to 1. You need 3 deals coming in the top of your pipeline to be able to get one that could cross the finish line. And so therefore you need to think about that in terms of your ratio. Now, in maybe another episode, we'll talk about how you horizon switch across those deals as they mature. Because as you get to closing, you get really, really busy. And this is where a lot of salespeople trip up and they fail to pay attention to that top of funnel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But keep it simple at the beginning of the year and go, what is my path to quota? Take your quota, look at your deals, and on from there. Now, let's complicate it. If you're in an organization whereby in your territory you have more than one thing that you can sell the available customers or clients or prospects who are out there, who are net new, then it gets more complicated because now you have to place some bets. You have to say, which of these products am I going to invest time in? Which of these products does the company want me to actively promote and push? Because you'll often find that in compensation plans, as we discussed with Chris Goff a few weeks ago, there might be incentives around new products or products that the company really wants to push for one reason or another. And so your path to success might be there. Now, the veterans might advise you, that's awesome. It's great that the company wants to have you sell that. But this product, A, has a 3 to 6 month sales cycle. Product B has a 15 to 18 month sales cycle. So therefore, you're going to take longer to sell those. You can't guarantee that if you don't already have them in your pipeline, you're probably not going to sell one this year. Mm-hmm. Now, that is part of the calculus that you need to make. And if you're brand new to a company, you need to work that out real fast as to what the typical cycles are to be able to sell your product portfolio. Bethany says, if you don't subscribe, I'm not allowed to make any more dad jokes.
Which honestly might be a selling point. But still, subscribe anyway, please.
When I was selling clinical systems and leading teams selling clinical systems at Allscripts, we had upwards of 25 products and services that we were selling. And that made the math really, really complicated. Salespeople initially love it because it's like, I got all this stuff to sell.
Look at my bag.
Where do you focus your time and effort? So I think start with the easy one, which is, what is my path to quota? How can I get there? Then later you can actually start looking at your territory and trying to work out, okay, now how do I actually take my territory and calculate that back into creating pipeline? Mm-hmm. And hopefully you've got some, if you're not a new person to the company like Bethany is with her company here, then you will have some pipeline that may have carried over. But it's still really important that you do the basic math. Start with the path, then start looking at your territory and what is the viability of selling the portfolio. If it's one product, it's dead easy. That's what you've got to sell. If it's 25 products, you're going to have to get into some calculated math and decisions about where you're going to invest your time against both the existing customers and the net new customers that you might have in your territory.
Yeah. And I think that's as well where you need to go back in that first recommendation I gave of taking the time to sit down and look at what worked and what didn't work. Look at what worked for the reps that was successful. I remember at Rhapsody on the new business side, there was a fabulous new business sales rep called Mike. And he was really successful. He went to club like 1 million years in a row. I think he's still going to club. And he's just really good at what he does.
Yeah.
And while he was really good, there was the other spots on his team with those reps were just churning. And I remember chatting with him one time. I was like, why are they having such a hard time? And he's like, because they're going after this, which is fine, but it takes a lot of luck and stars aligning. What I do is this. And it was a lot more churny, like smaller deals. But he's like, but I can go and sell those in a minute. And they add up. So as much as it's lovely to try and get that big $500,000, $750,000 deal, it's a lot more effective to sell 10 of these.
Yeah.
And, the work effort is probably similar, a little bit more when you're churning through a million opportunities. But he was like, for the territory we're working in and what we're selling and what is in my bag, this is the way that you get to quota. And he went to club like a million years in a row on it. So if you haven't been successful, look at the people who have been. Hopefully you're a nice person and they're a nice person. You could chat and, share war stories and figure out how to make the best of it. But it does make a difference.
And I think for sales leaders, that's the other thing that at this time of year, normally, you're typically maybe bringing in new hires, either that you did hire over the holiday period and starting them literally on the beginning of the year, or as you're going to SKO, you're hiring to bring people in for that kind of kickoff start that normally happens with lots of training and product announcement and stuff like that. So if either of those things are happening, you have to bear in mind that those newbies are going to have some spin-up time. And so therefore, how are you going to accelerate that? How are you going to take that and allow them to become more successful more quickly? And then if you're building those teams, and this is one of the lessons I learned a long time ago, is not all territories are created equally.
Mm-hmm.
You may, as a company, have a very strong brand recognition regionally, whereby your headquarters are maybe located, I don't know, somewhere in the Northeast, Boston, Philly, Washington, D.C., or they're in California and you're heavily networked there. So therefore, your reps who are in those territories, as opposed to reps who are in territories where your brand recognition is very low and you don't have the same network of clinical contacts, then that may be a harder road to hoe. And how are you going to get those reps, one, up to speed so they can be effective, but two, then support them so that they can be successful in those areas? And different strategies may be required for different territories. So that's the other thing, that as people are planning for either reorganizing territories, reorganizing sales teams, if you're a CRO, and looking at all of this, is you've got to, it's not as straightforward as just throwing up, like I used to do with other leaders. You throw up, 36 stickies on the wall with the names of your reps, and then you're shuffling them around to try and just get it. There's a lot more sophistication to it afterwards, once you've reorganized into, and now how are you going to make them effective and performant?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think another tactic that I use at the beginning of a new year is looking at your accounts. And this is whether you have existing accounts in your account manager or your new logo. Look at who you're selling to. This is a great time to just refresh yourself. Again, you can do this old school with Google and OneNote and a pad of paper. You can use your GPT of choice and, kill some trees while you're trying to figure out who you're selling to. But do things like looking at locations. Should you sell, is your product that you're selling, is it better at a 10 hospital system and above, or is it better for a clinic? Is it better for a this? Is it better for a that? And some of this stuff your company will tell you, but it's better if you go and do some research as well. Things like creating an updated org chart. I love a relationship map. It's one of my favorite things to do as a rep. I love color coding, and I like saying if someone's a champion or if someone's a detractor and who their owner is. At a lot of my previous roles, I've literally I've written out the company that I'm, my client's org chart, and then I'll assign and I'll be like, okay, this person is mine. I talk to them. This legal person, my legal person, you're now going to be best friends with this person. Because if you create a complex relationship map, it's going to pay dividends down the road when you're actually selling. But also look on LinkedIn. Is your usually very quiet champion, are they suddenly on LinkedIn posting a bunch of thought leadership stuff and commenting on things? Guess what? They're probably looking for a new job, and they're probably going to leave your account. Because why else do people post on LinkedIn? The only time people go on LinkedIn is if they're looking for a job, if they just like LinkedIn, which some people do.
There's a lot of those.
There's a lot of people just like LinkedIn. But if a normally very passive person is suddenly posting a bunch, I would flag that as a little suspicious.
Yeah, and the way to do that in LinkedIn, if you're just a casual surfer and you just look at your own stream, but when you drill into somebody and look at their profile, that you can go and say, show me their posts and show me what they've commented on, and you'll actually see if they like various things and if they're commenting on somebody else's posts or if they're posting new themselves, and you can very quickly work out patterns as to what they're doing. Is this normal behavior for them, or have they suddenly become inspired? Just be careful, because idiots like me and Bethany, we're constantly on there promoting the podcast. And
well, you should like and comment on our posts.
Absolutely, like and comment on our posts all the time, please. But no, but
it is also helpful, because sometimes you'll see, someone that you're trying to sell to, and they'll comment on someone else's thing and be like, oh, yeah, we just upgraded, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, we're dealing with the same pain point. If they are a LinkedIn user, you can get a lot of insight. You have to be careful about how you then bring it up so you don't appear like a stalker. Please don't be creepy with anyone on LinkedIn. But,
or
you can use it to dig around. Or any social media.
We've discussed before.
Yes. Don't turn up and be like, I saw your 5-year-old is doing blah. No. But again, the more informed you are about your prospects and about your accounts, don't ask the lazy questions that a customer has been asked 100 times that you can just Google. Save your questions for the good stuff that they absolutely are not going to post publicly and is not going to be available on their website. But again, just do your research. It's so simple.
There's a salesperson that worked for me and worked alongside Bethany in another organization called Dan Davis. Dan, I loved this aspect of Dan's behavior. Whenever he went to visit a client, he didn't just go for the meeting. He hung around. He actually hung around. Sometimes he'd hang around for 2 days in the hospital and just wander about and introduce himself and hang out in the cafeteria, etc. When he was doing that, he was gathering intelligence. He was finding out what was going on in that organization, not just with IT and that system. He was finding out what was going on in the organization. Were they building a new facility? Were they talking about this? Were there architectural models in the lobby? Were there, what was going on? He said he loved reading bulletin boards. Those big cork or felt bulletin boards.
What a nerd!
No, but he said you can find out all kinds of interesting stuff. Like some organizations post their team briefings on there. Some people even have their organization charts pinned up on there. So, Dan was a great, he would probably have made a really good CIA operative in that respect or something. And in terms of sort of like just gathering intelligence. And I think that's one of the things that, as Bethany's saying, yes, digitally things are made so much easier, but people are really aware of that now. And so they've started to sanitize a lot of that stuff. And so there is still a lot of merit from getting out there and getting on the road.
Absolutely. I agree. So when you've done all your internal work, it's then time for every rep's favorite time of year, sales kickoff.
Yeah! Let's go, man! Give me that hype music.
Yeah, that's when you get to find out your executives have terrible taste in music and they walk onto their pump up jam and it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
No, someone should have stepped in here.
In America, we say like and subscribe.
In Scotland, we say, don't be a numpty, just press the button.
Legitimately, I love a sales kickoff. I love a sales meeting. I like getting to meet people. I like talking with people you don't normally talk to. I like some of the rah-rah company bonding stuff. I know a lot of people don't. But I will say, I'm like 12, 13 years into this. I've probably been to a dozen kickoffs. I still like them. I'm going to mine next week. I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I know. You've been to more than a dozen. Maybe you are over them.
Oh, she whiz. I mean, I have been to so many sales kickoffs. By the way, if you are going to your sales kickoff, nothing would be better than for you to celebrate that with buying yourself some rolls of SKO merchandise from the Haverin About store. So the links will be there, but we have some interesting stuff. I've obviously got the mug that I love, my nice red and white mug there, which also has the podcast logo on there as well. But we've got some T-shirts, not only with Rule 3, which is nothing good happens after midnight, but we have Rule 1, which is rather along the lines of Fight Club, is what happens at SKO stays at SKO. Because there is probably an episode that we should do that should be an After Dark episode about all of the interesting things we've had to deal with at SKO events that we may have been at over the years. Because sometimes people get a little excitable. So, what happens at SKO stays at SKO. And then I think, one of the other rules that I've got, and actually I should publish it. I've got about a dozen of them that I've gathered, and they're all kind of humorous. But one of them is the front row. This is row 4. The front row is for managers, suck-ups, and people who panicked and came in late. And there was no seats left other than in the front row.
Yeah. And so, someone on stage went, there's seats up here, and they have to walk of shame it to the front.
If you're a veteran, you're in the back third of the hall. Because
I'm a front third person. I want to be in eye line of the people. Although I will say, I can think of one SKO where I was so over the company and just so angry and pissed off. I backrowed it, and me and my buddy just sat and we
glowered.
We were like, let's take we weren't actually drinking because it was only like 10 a.m. But it was like, let's take a theoretical shot every time they mentioned this. Yeah. And about 30 minutes in, we would be like passed out by now if this was actual alcohol. It's not good. But sales kickoffs.
In all seriousness, I think sales kickoffs are an exciting time, generally. I mean, after you've been at home with family and the sales kickoffs for larger companies tend to be in warmer places if you're from cold climates. I do know that lots of my colleagues who lived in Florida always groaned when the sales kickoff was in Florida. But at least it meant that they were able to get home quickly without all of the weather delays. And that's another, it's back to the travel episode that we did recently in terms of the delays you get at this time of year because of weather systems that fly through, because you normally can end up getting stranded in your nice warm SKO location. But I think that those kind of events at typically at a hotel location, I think most people have gotten back into in-person events for their sales teams. During COVID, obviously, that all closed down, and we did virtual business reviews and virtual kickoffs, etc. But they're a great time for the company to try and bring you up to speed of what the objectives for the year are. And I do think that the theme in the opening session tells you a lot about where the company's head is at, if they haven't already been broadcasting that. And, what's your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. And I think you have to align appropriately. I've been in sales kickoffs where it's like, we're acquiring and we're growing and we're doing this. And it's like, okay, clearly they have a big plan, and they're like, but you've got to sell. We need numbers. If you don't have, and it was like, okay, this is clearly going to be a very higher pressured year. And there's other SKOs I've been to where it's like, here we go. Isn't it nice that we're all together? This is a delight. And I think you have to match that. But more importantly, I think sales kickoff, as, thinking selfishly about yourself, you have to figure out how you want to be seen within the company. Because look, if you had a rock star year and you're going to get to walk around and everyone's going to know you closed the big deal, then you're kind of good, right?
Well, you're probably going to be on main stage.
Right.
being, lauded and applauded and all of those
You
kind
get
of
to do your
things.
little
Or,
case study. How did we
yeah,
close this amazing
at the
deal?
celebration dinner that there normally
Yeah.
is at these
Yeah.
kind of events. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had years where was my experience and it was great, right? And there's others where you didn't have a good year and you're just sort of there. But how you position yourself is important. These are normally opportunities where there are the executives of your company, there is leadership, there are the other teams that you encounter, whether that is legal, security, compliance, product, professional services. You have to go around and meet those people because you have to work with them. It goes back to the beginning. If you know that legal was a pain in your butt last year, guess what? Go and befriend the legal
Go
team.
and make friends. Yeah.
Just go and make friends.
Yeah.
Offer to buy them a drink. Bring them some.
And talk about not the crappy stuff and, please, will you help me in future?
Yeah.
Talk about normal things, in the social setting, because what you're trying to do is establish a rapport with them so they think that you're an okay human being to deal with.
Yep. And you also, this is an opportunity to show off how intelligent you are. You listen to this podcast, you're already very, very smart.
True.
So ask good questions publicly. Now, don't ask performative ones, where it's like, well, how could everybody close deals like me? How do we just replicate my success everywhere? Because someone's just going to want to punch you later. And that's bad for everyone involved. But just ask smart questions that people are thinking, right? Especially if you are in a position where you're coming off a good year. If there's a lot of tension and there is a lot of like, what does this mean? If you're in a position where you can ask the question of like, hey, are we moving from this model to that model? Or, hey, we heard that there was maybe an acquisition coming. Could you tell us more about this company that suddenly, their CEO is in the back of the room? Ask some of those questions. With the exception of that is, if the day's sessions are going to wrap up at 5 and then you have your evening thing at 6:30 or whatever, do not ask a question 4:30 p.m. onwards. Do not. Don't derail it. Do not even think of adding to add my 2 cents. No,
even if
your 2 cents don't
on the
matter.
stage going, what? Nobody's got any questions. Just don't take the bait.
No one has questions at 4:45 p.m. No one. And if you do, write them down.
Yeah.
And send it and go back to your room and go, oh, just thought of this question.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask.
Yeah. Or buttonhole the person that you had that question for at the cocktail reception before you all have dinner that evening or whatever it might be. Because that's another way to increase your brand internally.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're earlier in your career. Because, I've had the inverse, which is like, when you're later in your career, quite often you're kind of not hiding from the CEO, but you're going like, oh no, if he gets me, then, I'm going to have to answer to this. And, oh God, I'm going to have to do that. And so you end up in that inverse thing. But when you're earlier in your career, if you had that burning question, rather than being performative in front of the whole audience and looking like the eager beaver, and maybe even looking like a bit of a show off, hold that thought and then go up and pose that question to them afterwards, because that will allow you to establish the fact that you're a smart person. You had that question. You say, hey, I didn't want to derail the session by asking this question, but I'm really curious. And then pose your question. Because I think that is one of the things in terms of SKO. You don't necessarily get lots of exposure to the leaders in your company. And the kind of SKOs and, the first quarter QBRs are normally a time where they do come and spend time with you. And so it's an opportunity for you to be able to position yourself as being one of those smart people.
Absolutely. And I think if you are one of those smart people, rule number whatever on Dad's mug also stands. Just as a reminder, if it's 11:55, excuse yourself and go up to bed. Yep. There is nothing after midnight that is of any use to you. And you can have a good time. I've had a very good time at many SKOs. Yeah. But just take a step back and think. And also proactively put this is just a free tip for everybody. Go ahead and bring a bottle of Advil or your painkiller of choice from home and just put it in your bag now, because at the hotel lobby, it's going to be like $5 for 2 little pills.
Yeah.
It's a waste of money. But if you have the opportunity to just bring one from home, you should. Because even if you don't get very drunk or wrecked or whatever, you're probably drinking and eating and walking and talking way more than you normally do if you otherwise work from home.
Plus,
so,
you're in a petri dish of a bunch of people who probably have got little kids who have brought their various viruses and bacteria with them from wherever they've come. And you're all hanging out together, laughing and guffawing and slapping each other's back and giving air kisses or sometimes
Sale Kickoff brought to you by Purell.
Purell.
or your hand sanitizer of choice. Look, I have a 5-year-old. This is literally on my desk. And I use it several times a day, and I wipe things down, but other people don't. Don't all go home. And it's January. Everyone's coming in on planes. Like, it's going to be gross. So Advil, hand sanitizer, don't get drunk, be intelligent, don't ask questions after 4:30 p.m.
Because I'm going to give a tip that I think I handed off to you that you then perfected. When you start the evening, you don't want to seem to be a party pooper. So have an alcoholic beverage, maybe a mixed beverage, assuming that you take alcohol at all. And there's lots of people who don't. And I understand that, and some for medical reasons, some for philosophical reasons. But if you do, because, sales is a very social environment, have a clear drink. My drink of choice was Bombay Sapphire and tonic. So a gin and tonic, right? And my second drink was club soda. Do these two things look the same with a slice of lemon in them? Yes, they do. So that meant I had 1 gin and tonic and probably about 6 club sodas. And the trick is, don't say, if somebody says, hey, let me get you a drink, you say, it's okay, I need to go up to the bar anyway. So that nobody's quite aware of what you're drinking. Now, Bethany, I know you took that step forward too.
Yes. Yeah, I do the same thing. I have vodka tonics and then I have tonic water. Or if everyone's having a beer, I pick a beer with a dark glass bottle. So it's like a brown bottle or a Heineken or something, so people can't, because if you get a Corona and it's clear, they can see that you've only taken one sip and you're just holding a beer bottle around. And look, I will say, I think this is a lot better than it used to be, right? I think look, I'm sure your stories of sales meetings from like the 90s and 2000s are a lot more, I've had one client ask me to take them to a strip club at a at a customer conference. You've probably had more than just one because I came in a later generation.
Bit later.
And so people are a lot more accepting nowadays, I think, of people that don't drink, and that's a good thing. I don't think there is as much of an expectation, or I just work for way better companies now, which could also be very much the case.
I think there has been a shift, but there is still a population, and I think there still is a pressure there. And I think particularly,
well, we saw this even at Vive Health, whichever one it was. Come 4 p.m., every booth had a bar.
Absolutely, yeah.
Every single booth had a bar. So I did the same thing. I got a vodka tonic, and then I just walked around with tonic water for the rest of the night.
Yep.
And that was only last year.
That's the trick is, just, fit in without complying, to the expectation. And I think that's a good way to go. And you can be your natural effervescent self without, any kind of like chemical additives. So, from that perspective, I think it's great. I think that we're all aware, and this truly is a, health and social, sort of public announcement. I mean, alcoholism is a real issue in our contemporary society. And I think
and in sales.
And I've had lots of people that have worked for me, alongside me, that I've worked for, that have had to, or believe they've had to, lean in on alcohol. And it is a disease. I mean, speaking as a former mental health professional, it is a disease. And it is a very difficult disease to adjust. I mean, because otherwise, why would AA and all these other organizations exist to try and support people who are trying to change their behaviors and reform? But in a sales environment, because of the pressure, because of the performance expectations that there are, it tends to exacerbate a lot of those stress fracture points in people's behavior that mean that when they come into these situations and they maybe are feeling extra stressed because they're in this big public fishbowl of activity at an SKO or a QBR, they feel the need to lean in on their support, which for them is alcohol. And so I think just be very considerate of that when you're operating. So one, yes, you can control yourself as much as you can. But if you have colleagues that clearly do have challenges in terms of the way that they use alcohol, then try and be sympathetic. It's very easy to just go, don't want to be around him because, or her, because believe me, it is no respecter of the XX gene or the XY gene. So I just would say, go ahead, you go.
Well, no, I was going to say one of my tips that I think I did this with Bree, who was one of the reps I worked alongside at Rhapsody. We were out, and had drinks with, had wine with dinner or whatever. And then we're back in the hotel and everyone was chatting. And there was clearly a cohort that was like, let's get drunk right now. And Bree and I were like, oh, no. So I was like, you know what? We're going to get cake instead. And so they all kept drinking and doing whatever they want to do. We had a delicious cake or some sort of dessert thing. Yeah. We were still hanging out, but we didn't have that feeling of like, we have to keep drinking to stay with these people. It's going to be weird if I'm not and you are and whatever. And so to Dad's point, it is difficult. It can be really difficult for people, right? And that's where you have to lean on your support system.
Behaviors like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that it's another reason why that advice, I'll hold the mug up again, nothing good happens after midnight.
No.
And that's when, a lot of the kind of excess of drinking and partying can happen. And
look, sales kickoffs.
Be very conscious of it.
Sales kickoffs are when I get to do all my overnight masks and not scare my husband. And so it's not worth it if I'm only getting like 4 hours of mask time on. So I really need to be in bed by like 11 p.m. at the latest, because you got to wake up at like 6 a.m. So that's like a solid 7-hour masking situation. So if you need an excuse, dear listeners, say you have to go back to your room because you have a beautiful new facial mask that you want to try tonight and you want to get your biggest bang for the buck. You want the 7 hours of FaceTime.
The other tactic I pulled once I became a manager was, I need to go back and just review my presentation for tomorrow, or I need to go back and just knock out a few emails. And then I never, ever returned. I just basically, that was it. That was my kind of
It's like an Irish goodbye.
Yeah.
Or just straight up I've done that as well. Like, I'm just going to go pee.
Yeah.
I just leave.
And disappear.
I'm going to see them all tomorrow. They don't care. Like, doesn't matter. So moving on from how to not get drunk at SKO to how to not brown nose your manager this year, but still have a great year.
Yes.
If you're enjoying Haverin About, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps more people find us.
And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next bit of blethering. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
And I think this goes back to, if you're looking at the year and you're looking at your quota, you need to look up as well. Because while you can control your quota and you can control what you sell, you need to see what your manager is responsible for.
Yep.
And so you can be blunt. And some people have great relationships with their managers. Some people are brand new with their managers. We're kind of good now, but we don't really know each other. And some people, it's tough. It's fractured. There's tension for whatever reason. But if you can, ask them, what would make this a great year for you?
Mm.
What are your targets? Because if your boss is a CRO or a CEO or an executive, they have a lot more to care about than just sales.
Yeah.
They've got to consider a whole P&L that they're in charge of, or products, or there's 20, or are they going to get acquired, or have they just been acquired, or is the PE firm breathing down their back? Are you a public company? And there are, pressures from investors that you need to consider. Look at that. But then even if you just have a sales leader, what does success look like for them? Yes, we all know, and Chris helped to explain it, if your sales division has a target of $10 million and you have 15 reps, you're all going to get $1 million so that you have a coverage of 15 for the 10.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. That's fine. There's some math things, but there's also people things. Have they been tasked with, onboarding a bunch of new reps because a bunch of them left? How can you help them with that? Have they been tasked with, your Salesforce data sucks? Okay, how can you help them with that? Ask them, where are you feeling the most pressure? And it's not that you have to do their job for them, right? They're big boys and girls. They can figure it out. They're your leader, right? They are your superior. They're getting paid more than you. They have more responsibilities than you. But it is important to look up, not in an opportunistic way, but just in again, what is important for the company?
Mm-hmm.
What are we really worried about? Are we worried about customer churn? And so you can then align your business accordingly. If it's just straight deals, right, that's easy. You can just go in and get your deals and get to 100% and be like, tick, I've done my job. But also, what else can you adjust? Do you need to adjust your communication style? Do you need to adjust which accounts you're focusing on? Because, even if you're hitting your quota with all of those little deals, do they really need a big flagship one to sing to the investors or to the PE firms so that when, they go up for acquisition later in the year, they can be like, and we've just signed blah-de-blah. And everyone goes, ooh, I've heard of that one. At the end of the day, your manager is your biggest internal customer. You have to treat them accordingly.
Yeah. And I think that looping that back into SKO, typically QBRs, or the first business review of the year, is either immediately following SKO. I mean, some companies literally take you out of the way, and 2.5 days of brainwashing and dumping and rah. And then you get into business review straight after, because what will happen is they'll do that, but then the company will pull the sales leaders together and go, okay, what are you going to do for me? And here's what you're getting. And so they get their cascade down from the business plan of each, what the expectations are. Then they'll get together and come up with a plan, and then they'll come to that first QBR session, whether it is coterminous, i.e. in the same week as that SKO, or if it's the week after or 2 weeks later or whatever it might be. When you're at SKO, that is a good time for you to start trying to understand. Now, the company may give you a big old presentation that says, this is what we're about for the year. This is the plan for the year. This is what we're doing. This is what we're focusing on. And when companies do that, it's great because you get that message. However, scrape beneath the veneer. Talk to some of those other corporate people that are at kind of like tier 2 and tier 3 and get the inside scoop as to what does that actually mean and where are we going and what about. If you're a seasoned veteran, you do that automatically. But even if you're a new person, ask your colleagues and say, well, what does that mean? And what are they doing? What's your interpretation of that? Because you'll often get a nuance that isn't on the deck or the presentation that's up on the screen. So it's a good time to do that, because then that'll allow you to take that information and messaging and then, kind of insight into your planning for your year. So as Bethany said, start your planning last week and this week for the year. Then once you hear what the SKO messaging is, you adjust your planning, particularly based on any insight that you might get from insiders. And then when you get to that first QBR, you will be ready for what your manager is expecting as you get together and review, okay, how am I going to make my number? Because that's always the question in the quarterly business review is, okay, Great. We had a great time at SKO. We celebrated last year. Yay, rah, rah, rah. Team did really well. What have you done for me lately? I said it right at the beginning of the episode. So I do think that quarterly business review comes up really fast. And you need to think about how you're going to be there. And particularly you learn this as you become, a little bit more experienced, either within a company or just within the industry. You need to go into that QBR with your plan set. You need to know your pipeline, if you have one, inside out. If you don't have a pipeline and you just have started in the company, you need to have a game plan. You need to be able to stand up and articulate, this is how I'm going to attack this to make my number. And you have to deal with it in a confident way. It's like every NFL, sorry to lean in a sports analogy, but we're in that season right now. Every NFL team starts the year believing they're going to the Super Bowl. They're not all going to make it, but they all believe it at the beginning of the year. And that is a core component. It's one of the reasons that sales leaders love leading off with all these sports analogies. We could probably have another discussion about, being SKOs and the way the sports analogies just pour out. And I know all of my female colleagues really struggled with that when it was NFL references, but they got a little bit more excited when it was college references because many of them went to colleges that had, football programs and things. But yeah, but that would be my kind of sort of like advice. Use all of this period to get ready for that quarterly business review and to then hit the ground running and actually perform. And remember, 365 becomes 364, becomes 363, and suddenly you've got 120 days left in the year.
Yeah.
And you've only made...
I mean, we're already 1 week down.
Yep.
Well, you got 51 weeks left to make your number if you haven't sold anything yet.
All right, Bethany, let's wrap it up. What are the kind of key bullet points that you would like to leave the audience with?
I think even though it's very boring, preparation beats charisma. You can be the loveliest person in the world, but if you are not walking into this year prepared for what you are going to sell and how you are going to accomplish that, you're not going to do well. And so I think preparation is number one. The second, going back to there are 52 weeks in the year, consistency beats intensity. Yep. If you are only ramping things up the last 3 weeks of each quarter, and then your Decembers always suck because you're like trying to scram stuff in, no, stop it. Pull your deals forward. Get them in. The best deal is a signed deal, right? Yeah. There is no point in sandbagging, no point in dragging this stuff out. I think, but being consistent in everything you do, being consistent in closing deals, being consistent in feeding your funnel. Don't get distracted just because you have some active opportunities. You've got to keep feeding that funnel. Because at the end of the day, sometimes, and I always see this at SKOs, in awards dinners, there'll always be someone that says, they just got lucky. They just got handed that. They just da-da-da-da-da. And 1 out of 100 times, sure, maybe. Right? I had it 1 year at Simpler. One of my customers came to me and said, hey, we need this like tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay. It was the easiest sell of my life. And it was like a big chunk of my quota. That was pure luck. That was pure. I happened to have that account. I happened to be the rep at the time. They happened to need the thing that I was in my bag and not the other person's bag. Sometimes there is luck. But the best reps, the ones who are really good, the ones who are going to club 5 years in a row, they are deliberate. They are focused. And it's so easy to get distracted and to honestly to get pissed off. If you had a bad year, it's very easy to walk into SKO and have to sit at that awards dinner and just be grouchy and be mad. But don't be. Be deliberate. You know, if you want 2026 to be the best sales year of your career, don't wait for it to be handed to you by someone. You have to build the systems and the process that create that success.
100%, Bethany, because it's so easy to get bitter about these things. And I used to hate people that you would see glowering or not paying attention during the awards ceremony. We should all celebrate our colleagues' success because the truth is that means the company is still going and is doing well and on from there. So, I think that,
And look, you and I have both had years where we've been the winners and we've been the losers.
Absolutely.
We've both been to club multiple times. Yep. We've both not gone to club multiple times.
Yeah. I've had to stand there, having had one of the worst years of my life as a sales leader, and watch your name go around the big ticker in AT&T Stadium as, Bethany Miller. And personally speaking, as your dad, it was desperately exciting. But that was one of those sales kickoffs whereby I was like, yeah, I'm just going to meld into the background this year and try not to keep my head down so that a certain CEO doesn't come and buttonhole me as to, what went wrong last year, etc. So it's too easy to just sit there and be bitter. Don't be that. Celebrate the people who have had that success because it means your company is still going to keep you around, to be able to perform forward. But secondly, sales is a momentum business. It is very much, if you see that energy there of people having success, feed off it. Use it to power you. Don't sit there and go be jealous and sort of go they were lucky, they were this, they were that. That's not, that negative energy is not going to feed you. You need to take what's positive about that. If you think they did something clever, go and talk to them about how did you structure that deal? How did you overcome? What were the objections that you had to overcome to make that come through? How long had you been working that deal? Because sometimes you'll find that person who is salesperson of the year, they worked 7 years on that deal. It didn't just happen overnight. And so therefore, I think it's really, really important that you feed off the positivity of some of these events as much as it's easy to be snarky. And obviously, we covered some of those SKO rules, which are designed to be funny. But don't. Treat it as an opportunity to really kick off your year and feed you with energy and ideas to be able to go forward. Yeah.
New year, new you. New quota, new quota to go and hit. And then you get to go to club next year.
And it's a time of optimism. If you've got a new quota and you've got 348 days, go get it. Go get them, Floyd. Go kill it.
Yes. Look, we need to do like a rah-rah. It's funny. I have, I call them my cheerleaders. I have like a handful of friends who every so often I'll text and be like, I need you to cheerlead me right now. And they'll just send me like lovely, positive, like good, happy stuff about me. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, I got this. I think we need to do an episode where we just rah-rah our listeners. Yeah. Like, look, you are great. I fully believe that everyone listening to this can hit their number this year. Yeah. I fully believe it. You're all smart people. Yes. And with that said, Happy New Year, everybody. We hope you all really do have a great kickoff to the end. We hope you've heard some of these more practical tips and hopefully you can embrace some of them, use some of them to really have your best year ever as a sales professional.
Absolutely. And have fun out there. Be safe. Look after yourself and your mental health. And keep Haverin.